My father just disowned me from my entire family, and of course my mother didn't stop him because she's a floor mat. Well, let me tell you why I was disowned. It's because I wanted to marry the love of my life, who doesn't share the same religious fate as my father. I never thought that I would ever write here, but I guess here I am. Anyways, this is a throwaway account because I don't want this to get back to me. Have you guys ever had to deal with a toxic, manipulative father? Well, if you have, then you'll definitely enjoy this read. It's a bit lengthy though, but trust me, it's worth the read. I also want to get your opinions and comments on how I handled the situation. So let me give you guys some context so you're not confused or lost. I, female 30, have been working at my father's company for the past 6 years. It wasn't a family handout or anything of the sort. I worked extremely hard in school and passed extremely well. I was part of the top 10 in my class, and I worked my way to the top of my father's company. I got to where I was because of my hard work and my work ethic. My father, David, has always been very religious, uptight, and strict. We don't have the typical daddy-daughter relationship, and we're far from ever being close. Anyways, he has his own company, the one I work for, and it's basically a family business because most of the employees are family members. My father's always been very strict about his company being a family business only. So, because my father has been providing most of our family with employment, they never go against him and they're always in agreement with whatever he says, even if he's doing something wrong. They won't ever say anything against him because they're afraid of him, which is really, really sad. I'm not like my parents or family members, which has automatically made me, well, the black sheep of the family. And some family members even secretly call me that, but I've never let it get to me. The only reason I'm considered and called a black sheep is because of how open-minded I am. I also don't believe in judging others, while my father is the most judgmental person I know. He thinks that he's perfect, which is very, very far from the truth. But anyways, it was a hot sunny day, and I was busy working on my laptop in my office. I was at the company's marketing manager and analyst meeting. I worked closely with all of the clients. I was busy working on one of our big client marketing strategies when my father walked into my office absolutely fuming. He stood opposite of my desk and he was blood red. He took out his phone and showed it to me. He asked what the hell was this? He was showing me a picture of my virtual wedding invitation, and I looked at him and told myself that I need to calm down. I need to be calm. I told him that it was my wedding invitation. He rolled his eyes and told me that he wasn't stupid. He knew what it was. I raised my eyebrows and asked him why did he just ask me what it was if he already knew what it was. He slammed his hand onto my desk and asked if I was really going to get married to a person who was not part of our faith. I asked him what was so wrong with me marrying somebody with a different faith. He turned away in disgust, and I noticed that he was trying to calm himself down. I knew that people could probably hear our conversation because the walls of these offices were so thin. Also, my family loved eavesdropping because they love gossip and drama. My father looked at me and told me that if I went ahead with this wedding and married this idiot of a man, he would cut me off and disown me. I asked him if what he was saying was a threat. He shook his head and said no, it's a promise. He then stormed out of my office, leaving me absolutely speechless, and I could not believe that he was acting like this. I was his only child, and yet he wasn't even excited about my engagement or wedding like most fathers would be. I then reminded myself that my father was not like typical normal dads. He was in his own league, and unfortunately of that. The day ended and I went straight home. I found my mother waiting for me at the door of my apartment. As soon as she saw me, she smiled and hugged me. I was confused because my mother was not an affectionate person. Well, my father had told me not to be affectionate, and my father believed that being affectionate towards your children made them weaklings and softies. And since my mother listened to literally everything my father said, she never showed me any affection. I asked her what she was doing here, and she said that she was here to see me, and I smiled at her and opened the door. We sat down in my living room, and I asked if she wanted anything to drink. She said that she was fine, and I poured myself a glass of wine, and I saw how she was looking at me. I asked if there was anything wrong, and she gave me a fake smile and told me that there wasn't anything wrong. She was just surprised that I was drinking during the week. I chuckled and told her that I had a rough day at work and that sometimes a glass of wine helps me to relax and unwind. She nodded her head, and she then told me that she had received my wedding invitation, and I asked her if she would be attending. She froze for a second, and she took a breath. She asked me not to go through with the wedding, and I looked at her and asked her why not. She took another deep breath and told me that I would be embarrassing the family if I went through with the wedding. I started laughing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked how would I embarrass the family by marrying Troy. She told me Troy was not of our faith, so he would not understand our beliefs and customs. I snapped at her and told her that I didn't even understand our own beliefs and customs. She stared at me and shook her head. She told me that she had raised me under our faith's beliefs and customs and that I was now willing to throw all of that away for a man I barely knew. I told her that I've been dating Troy for 3 years and that it wasn't my fault that she and my father never wanted to meet him. She told me that she thought that me and Troy were just playing around and that it wasn't anything serious. I honestly could not believe the words coming out of her mouth. She sounded just like my father, and I just knew that he had to put her up to this. I told her that I would be marrying Troy, and nothing would stop me from marrying him, because I loved him. I told her that she and my father did not have to come to our wedding. She looked at me with a shocked look up on her face, and she asked me if I was going to choose a man over my own family. My own blood. I told her that they were not acting like family, and she told me that if I married Troy, then I would face very, very life-changing consequences. I asked her what that was, what I had told her to tell me. She kept quiet and just looked down at the floor, and I proceeded to tell her that I did not care about whatever consequence my dad had in store for me. At the end of the day, I was going to marry Troy, and nothing was going to change my mind. I then told her that if she had nothing else to talk to me about, then I would appreciate it if she leaves before Troy gets home. She gasped in shock and asked if I was cohabiting with Troy. I rolled my eyes and told her that I'm not in the mood to argue. She told me it's against our faith for unmarried partners to live together before marriage. She told me that God would not bless me and Troy's marriage and union because we were already partaking in sin. I asked her to please leave. She told me I could not handle the truth and she felt very sorry for me. I then told her that I felt sorry for her because she was in a marriage where she had absolutely no voice or say, which was sad. She yelled at me and told me to never disrespect her and my father's marriage again. I was starting to feel the anger in my body build up, but I decided not to allow it to consume me. I walked her out of the apartment, and once she was gone, I went back to the kitchen and poured myself another glass. I couldn't believe that my father had sent my mother to try to convince me to not go through with the wedding. It looked like I wouldn't be having any support from them, huh? Not on my wedding day. Update number 1. I was ready. It was finally the day of my wedding and everything was going peacefully. I was in my dressing room getting ready when my cousin Kirsten walked in. I smiled at her and she smiled at me and hugged me and told me that I looked beautiful. I thanked her and told her that I appreciate her coming, and she gave me a nervous look. I asked her what's wrong. She told me that no one from our family knew that she was here, and I asked her why, and she sighed heavily and explained to me that my father had banned everyone from our family from attending the wedding. I asked if she was being serious, and she told me that she was oh so serious, dead serious. And she showed me the message in the family group chat, which I was removed from. I told her that I could not believe my father was doing this to me. Tears started to roll down my face, and Kirsten asked me to please not cry. She wiped my tears away and hugged me. So, this meant that my father wasn't going to walk me down the aisle like I'd always imagined and dreamt of. Kirsten told me that I should not let this ruin my special day, and that I should try my best to just focus on me and Troy, and also the people who showed up to celebrate this special day with us. Kirsten was right. I couldn't let my family ruin this special day for me. I fixed myself up and thanked Kirsten for being here for me, and she told me that she would have missed this for the world, never. But she also told me that she could not stay long because her parents would start asking where her whereabouts were. I told her I completely understand, and that I appreciate her for taking the risk to come and see me, unlike my other cousins and family members. We hugged one last time, and then it was time for the wedding ceremony to start. The wedding went extremely well. All of Troy's family was there, even his great-great-grandmother. She's 92 years old. They were all so happy for us. Unfortunately, no one from my family came except for Kirsten, who had to leave during the ceremony, but I was grateful that she at least had the nerve to see me being walked down the aisle by Troy's father. My father-in-law, since you know, my own dad didn't even show up. Even though I was so happy that I was finally married to Troy and that our wedding had gone well, I was heartbroken and disappointed that my own parents did not even show up for it. They had allowed their dislike for other faith prevent them from coming to show love and support at my wedding. Every little girl's dream of having their parents be at their wedding, and I had always dreamt of wanting my father to walk me down the aisle, but I did not get that, and I was so heartbroken. A few days later, I was busy at work when my uncle walked in. He didn't bother greeting me even after I greeted him. He was my father's personal assistant and right-hand man. He also did not have a backbone and followed every single order my father uttered, which I found very weird. He told me that my father wanted to see me in the boardroom, and I asked him why, because I had no scheduled meetings with my dad. He rolled his eyes and told me to stop asking stupid questions and just follow him. I told him that there's no need for him to be rude. I followed him to the boardroom, which was filled with all our family members and a few employees that weren't family members. My father was standing in the front, and as soon as we got to him, my uncle sat down and left me standing face to face with old Dad. He was smirking at me, which I found to be pretty weird. I asked him, what was I doing here? He looked straight into my eyes and started talking about our faith and what our beliefs were. I rolled my eyes while he was talking, and then he started talking about why he started this family and why he was so invested in keeping his company as a family business only. He then proceeded to tell everyone that I had simply betrayed him, the family and the business, by marrying someone outside of the faith, and then he looked at me and told me that I had committed the worst betrayal possible, and because of that, I would be punished. The words he uttered out of his mouth next shattered my heart and soul to its core. He told me he's cutting me off, disowning me, that from now on I was no longer a part of the family. My mother was just staring at me. She did not even utter a single word. She was just nodding her head in agreement with him, and he told me that I was not allowed to contact any of our family members, and that they were not allowed to contact me, otherwise they would face the same fate I was facing. He then proceeded to tell me that he was firing me, and that after this meeting I needed to go pack up my stuff and get the hell out of his company. I stared at him with a shocked expression, and he continued to tell me that if I resisted leaving the premises peacefully, he would call security to escort me out. I asked him if he was being serious, and he told me that he was oh so dead serious. I was trying my hardest to fight back my tears because I was not about to cry in front of him and my toxic family. I nodded my head and left the boardroom. I packed up my stuff as soon as I got to the office, and Kirsten walked in and immediately hugged me. I told her she shouldn't be here, and she told me she didn't care. I told her that she would lose her job, and she sighed. I told her that I do appreciate her coming to comfort me, but that's the last thing I wanted, was for her to lose her job because of me. Well, she hugged me one last time and told me that she would make sure that we stayed in contact. She then rushed out of my office before anyone saw her. When I was done packing up, my father walked in with a smug look on his face, and I completely ignored him. He told me that he had warned me, and that hoped that this would teach me a lesson about not listening to him. I rolled my eyes at him and continued ignoring him. He then proceeded to tell me that my marriage would fail and that he would not be there to pick me up from the pieces, and I snapped and told him that he would regret this. I left the office before he could even respond, and I got in my car and drove home. As soon as I got to my apartment, I broke down in tears. Troy found me crying in my car in the garage 40 minutes later. He held me and wiped away my tears and promised that everything would be all right. I was not going to let my father get away with this. He had broken my heart, betrayed me in the worst ways possible, and humiliated me in front of everyone. You know what? He's going to pay for this. Update number 2. It's been a few months since my father fired and disowned me. I haven't had any contact with him or my family, and life was extremely hard at first. I felt so alone and miserable, but my husband has been my pillar of strength. He let me cry for the first week and then afterward reminded me that I cannot let my father destroy me and everything that I've worked extremely hard for. He then started encouraging me to start my own small marketing business, and he told me that he always thought I was the brains behind my father's operation anyways, and that I was the one who actually just bought in the clients and closed the doors and all the deals, not my father or his minions. So, I started doing my research and opened up a small business. I was going to hit my father right where it would hurt him. I've been working very closely with Kirsten. She's been my right-hand woman through all this, giving me info about the clients and telling me how things were going at the company. Me and Kirsten have always been very, very close. We've been inseparable since we were babies because our fathers are brothers. My father was the one who paid for Kirsten's college tuition and immediately gave her a job at his company once she graduated. So she always felt that she owed him some sort of loyalty. But in this case, she was on my side because she felt that what my father had done and was doing to me was completely wrong, and she was dead against it, so that's why she was helping me. I was meeting up with one of my father's long-term clients, and I had asked him to meet me here at my apartment, away from the prying ears and eyes, and I could not risk anyone finding out because this was all part of my revenge plan. The client came in, and I took them to my apartment office, which I had decorated to look very professional. He told me that my father had told his team that I was no longer working for him, that he had hired someone else in my position. I told him that's true. Well, I explained to him the reason why I was fired, and he was absolutely horrified. He told me that my father was such a dictator. I nodded my head in agreement with his statement, and I told him that I've just opened my own small business, and that if he's interested, I could still do his company's marketing. He immediately agreed. I was shocked because I never expected it to be this easy. He explained to me that the person that my father had hired in my place was bland. He further explained that since my father had hired the new marketing manager, his brand marketing hasn't been attracting new clients the way it used to. It felt good to hear that. I'd always known that I was good at what I did, but hearing it from a big businessman made me feel so confident. I drafted his contract, which he signed, and he told me that he would call my father to inform him that he would be cutting ties with the company. I smiled at him and shook his hand. A few weeks have passed since my first business meeting, and so far I've poached 5 major clients from my father. Things have been looking up for my business, and I was working extremely hard to make sure that all my new clients were happy. I was busy working on marketing strategy for one of my new clients when Kirsten walked right into my office door. She had this huge smile on her face, and she greeted me and told me that Troy had let her in. I greeted her back and hugged her. I asked her what was with the huge smile. She told me that she had a major breakdown of good news for me, and I asked her to spill the beans. She began to explain that my father's business wasn't doing so well because the company had lost 5 major long-term clients, and I patted myself on the shoulder because all 5 of those clients had come to me. She further explained that other clients were not happy with the new marketing manager and analyst, and that they were threatening to leave unless they could work with me. Hearing this made me so happy. My father's business was suffering, and even though it may sound very evil of me to say, I was glad that it was suffering. Kirsten put down a file in front of me and told me that this file contained a list of all the clients that were threatening to leave. She told me that these clients could be easily poached. I looked over the list, and they were quite a lot. I thanked Kirsten for the lists, but I told her that I was already under a lot of pressure because I was working by myself. She smiled at me and told me that she was jobless. I looked at her in shock and asked her what the heck she meant. What happened? She explained to me that her father had found out that she was still communicating with me because family friends of her friends had seen me and Kirsten out at a restaurant. So my father fired her? I shook my head, but I was glad to hear that she was out of that toxic environment. She told me that she would not mind working for me. I hugged her and told her that I would love her to be on my team. She told me that because she was no longer working for my father, it would be very difficult for us to get inside information on my father's company. I told her that we would figure all that out on a later stage. I told her that as long as we had the list that she drafted, we would be able to take down my father's company. Update number 3. A full year has passed. Here we go. Hey guys, a full year has gone by since the drama happened. My small business was doing extremely well. We had a total of 15 long-term clients. I'd been expanding my team and things were doing really well. I had to rent out an office space because of how much that we expanded, and my small office at my apartment could not accommodate my team and our clients, and I was busy drafting a contract for a new client when Kirsten walked in. She was holding a newspaper and she showed it to me with a huge grin on her face. I looked at the article she was showing me and it was about my father's business. Well, my father's company was finally in the red. The article stated that my father's company has been struggling for the past year. It further stated that things had gotten so bad that my father had to let a few of his employees go. I laughed as I read this because the article also mentioned how my father's company had lost 8 of its major clients to an unknown competitor, and that competitor was me. I just high-fived Kirsten as we laughed about my father's absolute downfall. This was exactly what I wanted. Well, it's been a few days since I saw the article about my father's business. While I was cooking dinner, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered and I was shocked by who it was. It was my father. He greeted me and I greeted him back, and there was this awkward silence, and I asked him what did he want. He apologized, telling me that he's made a huge mistake by disowning me and firing me. Well, I laughed when he said this, and I told him that he didn't tell me what he wanted, and I'm going to hang up now. He begged and asked me not to hang up. He took a deep breath and started saying that the family business was doing very, very bad. He told me that the business had lost a majority of the major clients, and he continued explaining how bad the business was going. Once he was done, I asked him, what did I have to do with this? He then asked if I could come back and work for him again. I laughed and told him why on God's green earth would I want to work with him again, especially after the way he humiliated me in front of everyone. He starts to apologize again and began to plead. He told me that he would do anything and absolutely anything he meant. I kept quiet for a moment and told him that I would think about it, but that he should not hold his breath. I hung up the phone and started smiling ear to ear. I took a week to give my father an answer because I wanted to make him sweat and just be so desperate. He was blowing up my phone every single day, calls, voicemails, text messages, begging, pleading me to come back and work for him, but I eventually responded to one of his texts and told him that I would give him my answer in person at his office. He asked me why could I not just give him an answer now? I told him that we were going to do things my way, and if he didn't like it, then we would just end all communication there. He agreed to my request, and I chuckled. The next day, I was at my father's office giving him my list of terms and conditions, and he was so shocked to find out and learn that I was the one who had poached most of the major clients. He told me that I was selfish, greedy, and evil. I laughed at him when he said that because he told me that I knew that his company fed our whole family, and I told him that the only family I had was my husband and Kirsten. I also told him that if he kept insulting me, I would walk away and leave his company to crumble into ashes. Once I said that, he started playing to my tune. I told him that in order for me to return to the company and bring all my clients with me, he would firstly have to apologize to me and my husband in front of the whole family and employees, and secondly, he would be giving her 30% share of the company. He stared at me and told me that I was crazy and out of my damn mind. I stood up and told him that, you know what, those are the conditions. I continued to tell him that his company would be bankrupt within the next 6 months, and we both knew it if he did not make the changes. I told him that the only person that could save his company was me. He glared at me and I could see the anger in his eyes, but I could see the desperation as well. He agreed to my conditions and told me that he would get everything ready. I gave him the same smug look that he had given me, the day that he humiliated me in front of everyone, and I told him that it's a pleasure doing business, and I walked out of his office. Final updates 6 months later. Hey guys, just thought I should update. It's been 6 months since my father agreed to my conditions in order to meet me, to come back to the company. My father did everything I told him to do. He hosted a whole dinner so that he could apologize to me and my husband in front of the whole family. He then apologized to me again at work in front of the family and employees. It felt good, and my husband could not help but gloat in my father's face, and my family was confused about why my father had hired me back, but he made it crystal clear that they had to respect me and my husband. I honestly didn't care whether my family respected me or not. I knew that my father was now under my control. Once he gave me my 30% share, I fired all the family members who had mistreated and disrespected me and my husband. I replaced them with a team I was working with from my small business. My father was so angry, but you know what? There was absolutely nothing he could do. I told him that if he ever disrespected me or did not follow any of my direct orders, I would leave his stupid company and take everything and let his rot. I know that I might sound very power-hungry or that I'm acting exactly like him, but this is not the case. I'm only using the newfound power I have on him to keep him in check. I'm still the same humble, sweet woman I've always been, but sometimes you need to treat people exactly how they treat you. Or, what do they say? Fight fire with fire? Alright, so I don't really agree with OP's decision at the end of the story, so let's go ahead and discuss it and talk about it downstairs in our comment section. In my opinion, I don't know why she decided to make an ultimatum to go back to her father's business. She should have let it burn to the ground the way that she was treated, and she's already poached all the big clients that she needed to make a successful business. She had her cousin, the one person she could trust that was with her on it. I don't know why she went back just for a 30% share of a failing business when she had something that was booming. Anyways, I want to know if you agree with me, or do you think, you know what, at the end of the day, they were all family, and that business was feeding their entire family, so I can understand that perspective. Anyways, let's talk about it, guys. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every day. So, if you want to be a part of these daily readings, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.